What? Amber and I are in the same room.
Oh my god! Can you believe it?
I had no idea this traitorous bitch was in town until like yesterday.
I'm sorry. I get overwhelmed when I'm coming into town to New York, and it's like a weekend, and I'm like for a wedding, and there's planned things on each day, and I'm like, I don't want to tell people and then disappoint them. Basically.
No, me too. Yeah, I pretty much never tell people when I'm gonna be in a place unless I have an event that I want them to come to. But then they're like, well, I can't make it to your event, but carve out a bunch of other time for me. And I'm like, I would love to. I can't do that. I don't have time.
I wish I could make time out of thin air, but I just don't have that like magical power yet.
So you were here for a Chapo wedding.
Yeah, I was here for Chris's wedding, Chris and Molly. Molly, who we've had on the podcast. Love Molly. Love Chris. They were amazing. The whole wedding was a blast. They had like a karaoke night afterwards, which is so perfect because when I first met them, we were doing karaoke in Prospect Park because it was during the pandemic and there's very little you could do, and they made up this thing of doing karaoke in the park, which was amazing and ruled, and it just kind of shows what type of people they are. They're like little vibe creator party rockers.
Vibe creator party rockers? You're making them sound like a tech startup or something.
No, they're more ravers than workers.
Aren't we all? That's actually germane to what we're talking about today. This whole thing we're working. Oh, Shug really wants to be in the pod. Hang on.
Hi, Shug. Can Shug be in the podcast too? Yay! Oh my god! In case if you're just listening to this, we do have video, and Shug is right now on the video, so we have a little creature, and oh my god, she's making the best face you could ever imagine. She's like, this is just my face, but
she really only has the one tooth that just sticks out and makes her look like I forget the main monster's name from Where the Wild Things Are. That's
oh my god, yes, I know the monster you're talking about. I don't know their names.
No, it's the monsters. There's monsters.
Yeah, they don't need names. Creatures don't need names.
Isn't that right?
Yeah, it is germane to what we are talking about today. Raving not working.
Yeah, we I don't know if you could tell from the everything about us, but as these things go, we tend to fall on the more bimbo-like spectrum of the ways that it is possible for a woman to be.
Yes.
There's really only about a handful of ways. You can be a bimbo, you could be a trad wife, you can be a girl boss, or you can just be normal.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can be of color in some capacity, because these are all very white.
These are white types, obviously. No, they're yeah, you can show cleavage or you can wear a collar up to your chin. And these are the options we have available. And a pantsuit.
Yeah, pantsuit, but
it's recently come into the picture.
I can't speak for you. I wound up going bimbo initially just because a pantsuit really doesn't look good on my proportions, and I can't do a button up all the way to the top. My tits are too big. So I, through sheer necessity, forgot how to read and never could do math worth a shit. So that wasn't even a problem. And now here we are.
I actually I like a nice pair of slacks, a high-waisted pair of slacks, but I prefer like a bustier underneath or something. Or when I do wear a button up, even though I could button it up, I button it down because I just like the lines better.
Me too. Yeah, I don't think that a real high button up looks that good on most people. It's an aesthetic choice.
Yeah. Plus, I'm a dumb hoe, and that
right. The primary thing, the main consideration here is that we are both just dumb as shit, and we're looking for some way to be a woman that Shook is being ridiculous right now. For some way of being a woman that would allow us to be dumb as shit without having to give up any rights. And so I, like many, was drawn to the the so-called trend of being a bimbo, although I'm not so sure it's a trend. It's been ongoing for a stretch now.
It's not a trend. I will that's what I will say in response to some of the things we read today. It is not a new thing. This has been going on for a very long time. And it doesn't mean it has to be like a permanent state of being. It's not a trend. But let's introduce the pod first.
Yeah, hi, welcome to Low Culture Boil, the trash podcast about trash culture. I'm your host, Rax King.
And I am your host, Amber Rollo. And today we are talking about, yes, indeed, bimbos.
This is occasioned by the recent publication and subsequent particularly berserk Twitter discourse of an article. Not an article, it's on her Substack. Let's just call things what they are. It's a Substack blog.
It's a blog. It's a blog. Stop taking blogs seriously.
It's just a blog. First and foremost, anybody can make a Substack, and one person did, and her name is Jill Filipovich, and this is actually someone who's been a blogger for like a minute now, like since there have been blogs, and she used to be someone I really admired when I was like a little young teenager starting to get into zines and whatnot, and I bought my first Bitch magazine. I'm pretty sure she was involved with them in some capacity.
Yeah. I liked her too, but then our ideas about the world diverged, and I think she just got annoyed by certain types of women that I love, and then she decided to write about it recently, about the Bimboification. What did she call the article exactly?
Bimbos and the backlash. She's using the word backlash as like kind of a private canon because she wrote another thing on her Substack about how there's this anti-feminist backlash going on, which I would say is true.
That is true. Yes. And there is, I would say, like a very small subset of leftists who would fall into this category of what she's talking about the bimboification of the left and using it seriously. But I don't think it's as large of a subset as she thinks. And I think most people who are engaging with the like bimbo lifestyle are doing it a lot more tongue-in-cheek than she is thinking.
They're joking.
Most of us work really hard.
We all know how to read, Jill. How the fuck do you think we read this dog shit post that you insisted on making?
I went to Berkeley, okay? I'm sorry, I'm not a stupid girl, and I'm also 34 years old. A full woman.
Right. Like, I feel, we'll get a little more brass tacks with her post, but she gives a number of examples of like TikToks and YouTube personalities and whatnot, and I think in service to making it seem like this is just a very recent phenomenon that wouldn't be happening without the overall TikTokification of everything and whatnot. And that's not correct. Like, we have been having this fight since I was on Tumblr, probably long before that, but that was the first time I ran into it. It was in the era of the Lana Del Rey type bimbo.
Yeah. I mean, we've been having this since Britney Spears. We've been having this conversation about, can you be a idealized like individual woman and also be a sexualized, openly sexual woman, and using that in a way. Is that possible? Is it possible to be both a girl boss and a bimbo? Is like
just the founder of a company, but you're dumb as shit. Yes, it is possible.
Yes, it is possible. Lots of dumb hoes have started companies, but that's not the only way to be a bimbo either. I mean,
right, there's a lot of modes. It pretty much always is inflected with humor, which this blog post was not. It is, and I know that on the off chance that this broad listens to this podcast, she's going to hear me say this and be like, oh, it's the humorless feminist stereotype again. It's the most humorless thing I've ever read in my life, though. It is like, if you're going to talk about TikToks and YouTube video essays about bimboification, you need to have a sense of humor, because 90% of the shit you're going to see in that entire field is jokes.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I think she really also doesn't think about how the history of bimbos, which we'll get into, and how it is essentially women doing drag, which is, it's inherently humor. Like, it's inherently comic because you're trying to enhance and magnify and comment on what it means to be a woman in that act, and how, like, what everything that comes with that, the sexualization, the condescension, the like lower, you know, tier that you get put on, like all of that comes into doing woman as drag.
Yeah, I think that it's not inherently inherently subversive, but it's not inherently backwards and retrograde either. And it's just, it's, you know, back in my day, we would call this shit sex positive feminism
Yeah.
and didn't much care for it then either. And it was the same argument. And it's an annoying argument because it's just a way for media to talk to itself about stuff that really does not matter and just make culture wars where there are none. There's no reason for this. There is none except that you wanted to get a bunch of attention and you got some. People are not happy.
Well, let's talk a little bit about like the history of bimbos and the word bimbo. I mean, the word bimbo, I knew this when I read it in your outline, and I was glad that you had written it down, but it comes from bambino in Italian, which means baby, which is, yes, then inherently a little bit condescending. But it's one of those words that like women tried to take back, and like slut or skank or bitch.
Yeah,
bitch magazine.
I am wearing a necklace that says bitch on it. Jill Filipovich has been involved with Bitch Magazine before. If it was called Bimbo Magazine, I guess that would not have been the case. Yeah. So yes, it does. The word bimbo does come from the word bambino, meaning baby or child. Interestingly, it wasn't until the 1920s that it was used for adult women at all. Before then, it was already a slang term, but generally used for kind of stupid, brutish men. You would call a man a bimbo if he was like a great big Charles Atlas muscle dude who didn't have a lot going on upstairs. That was a bimbo for a while.
That's really funny because that's like, that's kind of common for a lot of terms that are used against women. Like, the term daddy issues actually was a Freudian term called father issues, that Freud was talking about men who didn't have good relationships with their dad, and therefore because of that had poor quality friendships with other men. It was father issues. And then of course that got taken and applied to women and became like a sexist term. But it's a tale as old as time. We hear this happening a lot. But yeah, I like that bimbos was usually for men at first.
Yeah, as with all things, there's nothing wrong with women, and men who get called mean names have to just make up that there are women in the world who have problems and direct it at them instead, when in reality we are perfect and none of us have ever done anything wrong.
We're perfect angels, and this is merely projection by men. And I think that Jill is feeling that projection and then again projecting it onto other women. And you're like, no, don't do that. Remember, it's the men who are the bad ones.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I feel like we just need to band together and oppress men, which is another thing. I feel like she would laugh at me. It's one of these things. I like read this shit, and it's one of these stories that made me so angry that I start having arguments with its writer.
Me too.
Just alone at home in my head, which tells me that she succeeded, which just makes me angrier.
Yep.
So, history of bimbos. In the year 1920, there was a very racist song that came out, the title of which I cannot keep memorized. It's like my brain is not going to allow me to remember information that sucks this bad. What was it called? My Little Bimbo Down on the Bamboo Aisle.
So there is, like, whenever this discourse comes up, there's always the conversation of like, is bimbo a racist term? And I would argue that it has been used in a racist way, but it is not inherently a racist term. Like, it existed before that and was used to talk about, let's say, like, dumb Italian men. Not inherently racist, but yeah, this use of it was absolutely racist.
Yeah, sample lyric. I could not find a recording of this anywhere. It has been scrubbed from history.
Good.
But I did find some lyrics, and if these are correct, they are just awful. All she wore was a great big Zulu smile, my little bimbo down on the bamboo aisle. Yikes! Not a good thing to say. But that said, it's not implying that the girl in question is stupid, and for a long time the word bimbo did not necessarily imply that the woman in question was stupid. It just implied, that she was a big whore.
That she was loose, that she was sexually open,
Yeah.
that she was free.
Yeah, loose is
Loose,
a good word.
yeah. Loose is one of my favorite word for slutty.
Yeah.
Because it's honestly, it's a euphemism, but it is so wildly explicit. Like,
Right.
what? You're gonna really just say she's loose?
It's like how incels call women roasties to refer to oh, this is gross.
Oh no.
To refer to a so-called roast beef-like quality.
Oh.
That, yeah, you get where I'm going with this.
Oh my god, that is the stupidest thing in the world, because vaginas come in all shapes and sizes, and it has nothing to do with how you use them. Honestly, it's just because they are different shapes and sizes, because we are people and we are different shapes and sizes.
Can you blame them? They've never seen one. They just gotta make shit up.
They're like, I definitely wouldn't take one of that quality. You won't take one ever.
Yeah, you're not being offered any, buddy. You gotta, beggars maybe can't be choosers so much. Also, if you could just go to the strip club and see the incredible variety of God's creation just spread out gynecologically before you. Don't go to a pasties only strip club, full nude only, boys.
Obviously.
But also don't go, because you're definitely terrible customers.
Yeah, they definitely are horrible customers. Angry men. Oh no, please don't come to the strip club. Please only come if you are there to admire goddesses and pay homage to them.
And pay them.
Pay them. By homage, I mean money. Obviously.
Homage and also
Yeah.
money, actual human money. And that's actually a context that I would like to talk about a little later, is that this fucking cunt has completely elided the issue of who is most liable to be called a bimbo. First of all, it's every woman ever. Men are going to think you're stupid as fuck no matter what you're doing. This lady who wrote this post, she has a law degree. I think she is a lawyer. There is some man somewhere right now calling her a bimbo, because it's not our fucking fault, first and foremost.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We don't get to choose. We unfortunately are not in the position where we get to choose. So we might as well have fun with the title while we're here.
Right. The term bimbo can also refer in the fetish type community to a process called bimboification, which typically entails taking a just normal woman and doing some combination of things to make her look more classically like a bimbo. She might get extensive cosmetic surgeries, fillers, bleach her hair blonde to look more like Barbie, dress in a lot of pink, like any combination of these things. And usually in the fetish context, there is a man behind the wheel of all these modifications that the woman is making, and it's in that way sort of a dominant and submissive relationship.
Yeah. That is in a specific like kink context, though. That is not in everyday life and use of the word.
Right.
It is a specific consensual kink context, and yeah, they're like these surgeries can be pretty extensive, and it is again like playing with these dominant and subversive roles that already exist, and seeing, if we're going to be in this world, how do we play with that? Some people are like, you know what, I'm actually just gonna go whole hog. This imprinted me and I am into it, and now I'm gonna go all the way with it, and that I think is their right, and good for them if they find a way to enjoy it.
Honestly, like, if you're gonna commit to the full bimboification, I have very mildly bimboed myself out for this video recording today. I am wearing a lot of pink, a lot more than usual. Pink lipstick, I got a little Barbie clip in my hair. And this is about as far as I ever go with it. I don't have the patience. When I was still on FetLife, which I'm not anymore because it's a fucking godless place and there's nothing for me on there. But I was on there for a long time, and I would sometimes see women who were like years into the whole bimboification procedure. They would have like giant fake tits, but also like really cutting edge surgeries, stuff I hadn't heard of before. Like you can surgically lower your nipple line so that when you wear a low cut dress, you can show even more cleavage. Apparently, I don't even know if this is true. I didn't bother looking into it, but one particularly popular YouTube personality named Alicia Amira has had or plans to have a couple ribs removed, like the rumor about Marilyn Manson, to make her waist smaller and more like Barbie's proportions.
I mean, even Vampira did cinching to, make herself have a tinier waist and a more pronounced silhouette. That's very much bimboification.
Right. And there's, as I said, a lot of YouTube personalities who kind of publish their journeys in the form of YouTube essays. There's subreddits. You've got a subreddit called just Bimbo. There's one called Shiny Bimbo for pictures of bimbofied women in latex. And my favorite, 1000cc plus, which is for specifically bimbos who have giant fake tits. The number refers to how many cc's of tit filler are in there.
Or whatever. Yeah.
I don't know what they use now.
No, it's not silicone anymore. Yeah, it's like saline or something. It's like a
saline. Yeah, it is saline. Yeah. So 1000 cc's of saline. There's a subreddit specifically for that, and that's an amount so giant that typically you can't get it in a single surgery. So you see a lot of women who are like really committed, getting multiple surgeries to make themselves more and more like Barbie. I think Barbie is like typically the model.
Oh yeah, Barbie is obviously the model, and she's impossible to do biologically because you would fall over. But I would have bimbofied myself more for this podcast, but I did only have the things that I brought with me for the wedding. So I have a shirt on that has cleavage, but it's not. I engage with the pink lipstick and the full look sometimes too, but not today. Just doing regular old skank style.
No, you look pretty hoary.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh my God.
I feel like if I were a guy and I saw you on the street, I'd probably say something weird about your feet or something.
Yes, that's all I ask for.
Right? Yeah, that's all
How
anyone
else
wants.
will I know I'm a woman?
I had a guy recently, I was like wearing my cowboy boots and I get compliments on them sometimes. I don't know. And this dude was like, nice boots. And I said, thank you. And then he said, for me to knock. And it was just the most, knocking boots is like the most old timey. I wasn't even mad. I was like, why did you say that to me? That's strange. He wasn't old.
It came into his head and he was like, oh my God, I gotta say this. This is the line. I mean, it's Father's Day's coming up.
I gotta remind these bitches that they're bitches.
Yeah.
So great bimbos of history. I have about 5 on here because there's really not that many women where I would feel comfortable being like, you're a dumb slut. But there's a handful for whom it made sense. Jane Mansfield, kind of the original dumb blonde, reportedly had an IQ of 163. She used to like to make the joke that people weren't interested in that. They were more interested in her 40, 21, 36.
Yeah, well, classic joke.
Classic bimbo humor. Yeah. And again, this is a smart lady who just happens to have, bleach blonde hair and massive honkers and just took where life brought her and ran with it.
Yeah, she's smart enough to know how to use what God gave her.
That's okay. Yeah, that's real though.
That is real, honestly.
Jessica Hahn, the church secretary who accused the televangelist Jim Bakker of rape in 1987. Pretty much took down his empire. If you saw the movie recently, The Eyes of Tammy Faye, you are somewhat familiar with the story. She did reject the label of bimbo in an interview with Playboy magazine. She told them, I am not a bimbo. Yeah, okay. I know that's how people see me, but I'm not what I've been made out to be. Someone without thoughts or feelings or explanations. I'm a human being. She was kind of the progenitor of like all 80s and 90s bimbos. Remember how that term was like way more common back then?
Yeah, it was super common in the 90s. I mean, we mentioned Britney Spears at the top. Britney Spears was like classic bimbo. All of the women of like pop music at that time were all considered bimbos: Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, Jessica Simpson.
Jessica Simpson the most. To the point that Jill Filipovich used a picture of Jessica Simpson in her angry blog post about how bimbos are terrible. You can't have it both ways. You can't be mean to Jessica Simpson. She's not even on left Twitter bothering you about Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, she has nothing to do with the backlash. What in what world?
Yeah, she pretty much was the anti-bimbo backlash. Remember that how big of a deal people made over like everything she said on her reality show with Nick Lachey?
Yes. Oh my god, the tastes like chicken or chicken of the sea thing. Yeah, they hated her.
Yeah, people hated her for being blonde and buxom and occasionally saying stuff that was about as smart as anything I would say on reality TV.
I mean, when you're on reality TV for 9 hours a day, if you're going to be taped for 9 hours a day, you're bound to say something stupid. I am taped for about an hour a day, and I say stupid things all the time. I just was talking into the wrong side of the mic, okay, as I am saying this. So there you go.
It's just credit where credit is due.
It happens.
We are not women in STEM. Okay, so that's essentially what a bimbo is in a few different contexts and what it has meant at various points in the past 100 years or so. So with all that said, let's look at this blog post, which I can definitely find on my phone. I'm just going to keep vamping for a while I try to click this fucking link. Oh my god.
I would say Marilyn Monroe was definitely a bimbo, as well as Jean Harlow. They were like the two original, old Hollywood style bimbos, one more comedically so, one more just outwardly so. I would say one of the few ways of being a woman, and still is one of the few ways of being a woman, where you can make money off of it. I'm sorry, there's only so many things we can do. There are only so many things we're allowed to do in the society, and I wish we lived in a society where that was not the case, and we could just be bimbos just for fun. But sometimes you have to make money off of it too, because you need these tokens to survive.
Yeah, so a big part of why this op-ed stuck in my craw so much is that I and a lot of other women who have spent time in the sex trade, if you're a sex worker, you are trading off the bimbo stereotype. Mm-hmm. Even if you're a man sex worker, a lot of the time, there's this expectation that like you have to manage your client's self-image so that they feel brilliant and on top of the world and are inclined to be more generous with you because they're feeling so good about themselves. What is the number one way to do that? Well, especially if you're a woman, make yourself seem stupid and act like everything that man is saying is the smartest thing you ever heard. Yeah,
a lot of hee-hee. Yeah, I at this, when I was reading this article, this blog post, I was thinking about the ways in which I have supported myself and also supported men during my time. There was a time when I was stripping and supporting a man while he pursued his dream. And at that time, then I was like, I could throw this in Jill's face right now and be like, look, I was both girl boss and bimbo at the same time. I was doing both sides of what you're talking about, because the things that you're talking about, the things that you're collapsing into one thing, are not one thing. Like, you are talking about class and sex together, and they are connected, but they are not correlated in the way that you're thinking they are.
Yeah, so let's legally I think that does make you a girl boss.
I am so sorry.
This is not a girl boss podcast.
Right now, though, I am being supported by a man. So does that make it better or worse?
I mean, I do feel like you should leave my house, but it's a little too late. We've been doing this for a while now. Amber never told me she had a dark girl boss past. So let's look at this dog shit of a blog post. And I will just go ahead and give attribution. This is from jill.substack.com. An anti-feminist backlash is in full swing, and the latest iteration is the reemergence of the bimbo, this time as a self-styled socialist. So right off the bat, you are saying a mouthful.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to save you the time and energy of actually reading this thing. At no point does she make much of a case that this is like a problem on the left. There's like 5 people.
No, there's 5 people who are combining bimbos with trad lifestyle. And they are nothing, and they're going to make no difference. And if you're going to write a Substack saying that there's a problem that we need to deal with in feminism, there are a lot bigger sharks there are a lot bigger fish you could fry. A lot bigger sharks you could fry? That's not a phrase.
It's probably true. Yeah. It's not true. Okay. You could fry a big shark. It's a bad phrase, but okay. Hashtag Bimbo Talk is just one of the growing corners of backlash social media disguised as leftism, where female independence, women having any sort of authority or power, and feminism itself is deemed painfully uncool. No, it's not. I have seen some of these ladies on TikTok, and always with the great big tits shoved up in the camera the way I'm doing right now, and with the Valley Girl voice and vocal fry and making little jokes about how they can't do math. And at no point has any one of those women like dropped the facade for a second and said, by the way, this is how we do leftism now.
Also, they are always a lot of them are still very much of like the mindset of lifting up other women. They put other women on their shows. They book. I book and produce shows, and I am constantly trying to like get more women that I love out there. Not necessarily, I don't think in any way you could claim it's anti-feminist.
No, but she does.
Okay.
Bimboism would be a dumb, harmless online trend. It is a dumb, harmless online trend. It's not that it would be. It's that it is, and it's just the dumb online trend that has stuck in your craw the way that this miserable thing you wrote is sticking in mine. It would be a dumb, harmless online trend if it weren't being presented as a better alternative to the now widely derided quote-unquote girlboss, and to female independence more broadly. And then she quotes a little bit from a New York Times op-ed on Bimbo Talk and says, "You can dismiss this corner of the internet as totally backward. What you shouldn't do is dismiss it as irrelevant. If you're going to dismiss it, you can dismiss it as both those things. It's just a handful of gals on TikTok having fun." And she goes on to talk about how it's just part of a greater trend that features not just bimbos, but bimbos, stay-at-home girlfriends, and trad wives.
Yes, I don't like that she connects all of those things, because those are not the same thing. You would never see a trad wife wearing what either one of us are wearing. Absolutely not. You would never see a trad wife like on this podcast.
You're too busy churning their own butter or whatever the fuck Abby Shapiro does all day.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think that what she's seeing is this like response on the left to the way that we got kind of cornered into dual earner households. And that is something that I think is worth fighting against. Like, I don't think that we should live in a world where both people that are living together, or any two people that are living together, have to work. But I'm fine with either one of the two working, or it'd be in the best world possible. It'd be great if nobody had to work, if nobody had to like focus on like to prove themselves in order to be able to make a living. Yeah. And it doesn't matter whether you're proving yourself through your looks or your age or your intelligence. we do live in a society where you have to prove yourself in order to make a living. This just happens to be one way that some women do. And that's like, you're missing the problem.
Yeah, you're missing the problem. You're conflating this thing that you identified as a problem with other sects of equally pointless social media trends that aren't related, I don't think. I mean, I feel like one big difference in the tradwifery that I've seen proliferating on social media and the equivalent bimboism that I've seen around, the bimbos are joking and the tradwives are like sharing recipes and talking about techniques for managing a brood full of children on an airplane or whatever. And like, I have nothing against people doing either thing. But if one group of people is doing their bit as a joke and the other group of people is deadly serious, how can you make the claim that they're doing the same thing?
Well, then the other group that she puts in with these two is the trophy wife, which is like
well, that's me. I don't work and Sean works all day. And he does like the kind of work that even this bitch would say is like working class. Like he does handwork instead of email typing.
Yeah.
And so legally speaking, my man is out in the hot sun all day and I'm here in my little apartment surrounded by all my stuff, just popping Valium for fun. I'm the enemy. I baked a cake today, Jill.
Hey, okay, that is work. I mean, I think that's also a piece of it that she's missing. There is like household work and there is work in, at the construction site or in an office or wherever you are. I mean, there is different part of the problem with like us being forced into a dual income household situation is that it completely ignores the fact that there is work to do in the home and that it takes time and effort. And if everyone is gone and doing work at the office, which it all is at the office for some reason, except for, Sean, who's like one of the very few.
Yeah. He does man work and not, email typings, as I said. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's all work. It's very hard work being a girl boss and exploiting your employees. But where the fuck is your analysis of reproductive labor, Jill? Yeah. It's a real thing. Households need running too. And I have no idea if she's married or not, much less to a man. But if so, if she's in a marriage where both people work outside the home and come back to a nasty, messy house, who handles that? Is it you? Is it the husband or wife or whoever? Is it a domestic worker that you've hired? Is it some bimbo? Like, I don't fucking know. But there are people who have that figured out to an extent. And you can't say it's anti-feminist to have one person, regardless of what gender they are, staying at home, taking care of business.
Like me. That's what I do.
That's what I fucking do. And that's, there's an actual Marxist term for that called reproductive labor. You've got productive labor, where you're out making stuff, making little commodities that can then get sold off, and reproductive labor, where there are people attending to the forces that keep the productive laborers productive. There are people making that food, cleaning those floors, doing everything that the exhausted laborer really can't do at the end of a workday. When Sean comes home, he is not trying to hear me talk about how, in a 50-50 household, he needs to be doing the rest of his share of the cleaning. I just do it because I'm home all day. And if he were home all day, he would also do it.
And I've been in the situation where the opposite is true. And I think either one of them are cool and good. And I would love it in a situation where neither one of the two had to work so hard. But that is the situation we are in. I think that's fine.
I'm always dying to know what these pundits do about the labor in their own homes, by the way.
Definitely hire domestic workers. They absolutely are hiring someone and probably paying them not that much. A lot of times probably under the table and so below minimum wage. I can guarantee you it.
Yeah, that's what I always assume. That's a big unspoken thing in households where both people do work outside the home. And again, I have no idea what Jill's domestic situation is. I do feel like if you're going to write something like this, you should be willing to disclose how you handle what people call having it all. Because she does say that you can't. And that was sort of the the specious promise of girl boss feminism was you can finally have it all. You can have the job and the family and the man and the home, everything your little heart desires. And the reality of having it all is that some of it all has to be outsourced. It has to. One person cannot do everything. It's not possible.
Yeah. And then she goes on to talk about the women who are dating, who are in the left and who are bimbos and who are dating podcasters who are making obscene amounts of money.
She's calling you out.
Which is me specifically. And I just want to say it is not an obscene amount of money, and I am very grateful for the amount that Matt makes and that he can support me right now. I also want to say that even though I make jokes about it on this podcast, I work hard. I produce shows. I run shit. Like, I am also like working on the house, like working on the car. Like, I'm doing all the stuff that keeps the household together. But I do also work. Like, I am a comedian. I am out there doing shows. And I am doing this show. As Rax is also, like, she jokes about, but she also works really hard. She's a writer. She's a published author. Like, she's so that did annoy me a little bit. It is like, I'm sorry, we can't even afford a house. Like, we are still renters. Like, we're still like, it's not an obscene amount of money. Like, we don't have any savings. I am right now like scrounging and looking, and like the other day, like overdrew my account. I'm trying to figure out more work so that I can, take care of us just in case if shit hits the fan, which it might, because it is not like a guaranteed source of income.
Yeah, I have never known this, I'm going to call it a straw man bimbo that she constructs for purposes of her argument. A person who promulgates the idea that it's cool to not work, and the cool thing is to rely on a man for his income. And I know what she's talking about. I do see the TikToks where there's, the heavily made up ladies talking about how, his income is enough to support both of us. But they're joking.
Yes.
Nobody actually thinks that's good. The handful of people who do think it's good are so easy to avoid. This is just media jerking off. And she makes it pretty clear in this blog post that what she's really upset about is that there are large swaths of the left who think she's really, really uncool. What she says is, this new leftist anti-feminism sells the idea that female ambition, or women aspiring for anything other than hotness, male approval, and dependence, is problematic and worthy of scorn. This is something I've observed in my own conversations with young women, even in feminist spaces. They are hearing and arguing that any opting out of work, including making oneself reliant on rich men, is simply about rejecting capitalist demands. They hear and argue that the real misogyny comes in pointing out the problems and dangers of being wholly financially reliant on men who don't see you as an equal. First of all, you did not need all those adverbs. I am out of breath right now. That was too many adverbs and too many subordinate clauses. You need to talk less. Get back in the kitchen, Jill Filipovich. Just
Jill,
kidding.
Just so you know, that's a joke. That is clearly a joke.
That was joking. Yeah. It is actually me who is in the kitchen. But I mean, my point is that this is somebody who, from her bona fides and credentials, seems much more attuned to girl boss feminism, such as it was, or remains. But she's more attuned to that than to what she sees on social media now. And then it becomes one more instance of a pundit, a professional career pundit, seeing trends that they can't relate to in a field that they like to think they know pretty well, and responding to those trends as if it's indicative of some kind of collapse. Feminism is alive and well, and there are just as many bitches in CEOs' chairs as there were back when it seemed like maybe Hillary was going to win the presidential election, which I know that this particular person was all in for Hillary and really not a fan of so-called Bernie bros, and then all in, I think, for Elizabeth Warren and just the same shit. And I'm so fucking tired of it. It just recirculates and recirculates like bad air on an airplane.
I mean, it's like why you would think that someone who believes in feminism would believe that there are multiple types of women, different types of women who all equally deserve to be able to make a living. And she's like, no, there is one way of doing this, and it is Pantsuit Nation. And that failed. So we should try harder for. Sorry, I don't fit into that cookie cutter mold, and that's okay.
Yeah, I tried. I did make an honest effort to work in an office.
I did too. I worked as a customer service agent in an office at a startup, and then I moved on up to being a manager. I am so sorry. To
So
all
you
the
were literally PMC.
I was PMC, yeah, and I hated it. And I kept on telling I kept on telling the people on my team to stop coming in as early and as often, and they wouldn't listen to me, and I absolutely hated it. And then I tried to make a little mini union, and that didn't work. And so then I left. That I should have tried harder to make a union, I will say, but I was tired and worn out, and
You were just too much of a dumb slut to make it work the way you're supposed to. Feminism is about sitting in a fucking office.
Okay.
That's
right.
what it is.
You're right.
And any other thing that is available to a woman, like, again, the sex trade, which I note is not remotely spoken about in
Not
this
once.
fucking blog post. Like, if you're gonna talk about what she calls performative femininity and, vamping in this high femme way for male attention, I don't know how the fuck you can even make that argument without talking about sex workers. We invented that shit.
Yeah, and it's literally us making our own money. So how can you say that it's not feminist? If that's what your basis of feminism is women being able to support themselves, then any woman who's in the sex work industry should be able to fit under that. But then you're saying the sexualization of women is anti-feminist. So you can't.
Right, there's no version of the argument that doesn't have at least one hole, because I am not personally of the school of thought that, whatever a woman chooses to do is feminist. That is facile. I know that. But that's also sort of what's being said from one angle, and even more dictatorishly than that. It's not even whatever a woman chooses to do. It's if a woman chooses to wear the pantsuit and have the career ambitions, that's feminist. And women who think they're being sold a bill of faulty fucking goods, they are anti-feminist. It is anti-feminist to want to opt out of the fucking rat race.
Yeah. I mean, we're screwed no matter what, is what I feel like. So I might as well do what I'm enjoying, I guess, in a weird way.
Yeah, and I feel like how do I want to put this? I think that it's clear at this point that the variety of feminism that Jill Filipovich seems to be most in tune with has been, at least up until now, a big old fucking failure. I do not believe for a second that it's the women whose whole deal was professional ambition. I don't think they were the ones making it legal to get abortions. I think it was the badass activist bitches doing illegal shit for years at a time that made that happen. I don't think it was professional class women making huge strides in gay rights or women's rights or basically any field. I think that women have always worked, just not middle-class white women.
Yeah.
There have always been women in workplaces, as long as you broaden the definition of workplaces beyond little air-conditioned offices. And so I think that what we're looking at is a really narrow argument that applies to a really limited vision of feminism that exists only to get jerk-offs like me talking about it and having the arguments in my head alone, because that's the ultimate goal of this shit, right? Is the attention and the clicks and the subscriptions.
Yeah. I mean, I agree that there is something to the idea that it feels scary and uncertain to have your money come from another individual, right?
Mhm.
Absolutely. It's terrifying. Also, like having my sense of well-being coming from someone else is scary. But also having like my financial well-being coming from an employer is also terrifying.
And just as fucking tenuous. Just
Yeah.
as much as a man can decide to dump me because my ass got too skinny, just as equally can my employer decide to fire me because she's sick of paying for my fucking health care.
Exactly.
Anyone can take anyone's money away, Jill.
Yeah.
Jill.
Yeah.
I'm taking your money away.
If only we lived in a society where we weren't like relying on these little tokens to survive and we could, do whatever made us feel useful to society and helpful, then that would be great. But we don't unfortunately live in that society. I think that she doesn't talk enough about like what that means and what we're supposed to be doing. And also, I would like to know, what does she do for her individual households?
I will actually cut you a deal, Jill Filipovich. If you are able to prove to me that you make your household run without any outsourced domestic or reproductive labor of any kind, I will buy a pantsuit. A nice pantsuit at my own expense. Like, I'm not talking the J. Crew ready to wear off the rack bullshit. I will go to the row, which is something we're going to be talking about next, and I will drop like 30 bills on a pantsuit. I actually think they probably don't sell stuff like that. It's too nice. I'll find one though, if you can prove to me with some kind of evidence that you do not have help making your little girl boss household work.
I think that's a fair ask. I am very curious to see if she responds or has that evidence. I don't think she'll respond though, unfortunately. But please do. Please absolutely do. I would love to see you in a pantsuit. I personally think you would look great in it, but Rax looks good in anything, so it's not really.
I look like a little boy going to his bar mitzvah in a pantsuit. It's just the proportions are all wrong.
You look like that picture of Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen on the TV guide when it was like, what was it, Tycoon Tots?
Yeah, I look like a tycoon tot in a pantsuit. That's why I wear such slutty clothes, because I'm so short that if I don't have my titties out 100% of the time, people aren't going to know I'm a grown-up. It's just savvy. Jill, you bitch. I'm just going to keep calling her a bitch and a cunt. And honestly, if you really are, for whatever godless reason, listening to this podcast, you're probably not a bitch or a cunt. But I do also personally hate you so much. Not for writing this terrible thing that you wrote, but for how much time I have spent thinking about it and writing tweets and then deleting them and, saying sentences that begin with "and another thing" to my boyfriend.
Yeah, I did talk to Matt about this beforehand, and then I was like, everything you responded to me about it was wrong, so shut up. Just because you pay my rent doesn't mean you get to talk to me.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can't talk about this stuff to men. This is a conversation for girls, because when you do start throwing around the word bimbo with men, they get them some ideas in their brains that I like to manage men's behavior a little better than that, which is something that's very anti-feminist of me. You're not supposed to manage men's behavior. You're just supposed to let them be the wild animals that they are, opening cabinets and jars and not closing them. Every time I close a jar that Sean has opened and not closed himself, I'm being a bad feminist.
That's what it means. Absolutely. I am also a bad feminist because of that. So I'm right there with you. Genuinely think I'm a good feminist.
I think that at this point, it's like, this is something that really bothers me about like feminist media, is that so much of it is exactly this kind of putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
Like, it's like when dumbass commies on Twitter start talking about what will and won't exist in America under communism.
My
God.
Like,
you're
mutual
about 70
sex aid.
Yeah, sexual mutual aid. We are about 1,000 steps from even needing to start to begin to almost contemplate any of that shit. Like, it's good to have the answers for yourself, but I do not see the value in having conversations. And then, like, that's what you end up with. Like, media grade feminism has been stuck in having conversations mode for years and years. And we're losing all this, like, actually very important ground. You can't blame Bimbo TikTok for the fact that Roe v. Wade is being overturned. Like, you can't blame a bunch of dumb sluts on YouTube for the fact that some other bad thing is happening. I couldn't think of one in time, but there probably is something.
There's lots of bad things happening. But yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think the real problem here is obviously articles in general. Articles.
Stop putting words in order. That's not what they're for. Words are for saying things like "caution, coffee is hot." That's not for you to write articles with. Jill, you asshole.
Yes, I think that's correct. That's the real problem. Articles and blogs and yeah, words in general. And
books are on notice.
No,
they're not good.
They're fine for now.
Okay,
they're fine for now.
Yeah, I'm reading a pretty okay book right now. I would like to be able to keep reading it, but if it's anti-feminist, I won't.
Well, we know it's not alpha masculinity.
Do we know that that's not what I'm reading? I didn't say that that's not what I'm reading.
No, it's not alpha masculinity to read or speak.
Oh, right. Yeah, you're not supposed to read or talk or laugh, definitely.
Yeah, definitely don't laugh.
So... yeah, I guess that would be like a male bimbo, is a guy who doesn't talk, laugh, or anything else.
Mm-hmm. That would be a himbo is what we call them now, but really we can just call them bimbos because it was originally used for men.
Yeah. If anything, the lady version ought to be called a fimbo.
Yeah. Which sounds like a faux bimbo.
Yeah.
Which sounds like unnecessary to say because bimbo, part of a bimbo look is the faux part of it. So
yeah. Well, we'll get in the lab and get back to you.
Okay.
I want to go to the gripe zone. I have a gripe.
Let's go to the gripe zone.
I baked a cake for my friend's housewarming / birthday tonight.
Aww.
And I can't eat it until the party. I can't just sit there and eat the cake. So my gripe is literally that I cannot have my cake and eat it too.
I like that gripe. I made a cake recently for a friend's birthday party, and I did have that same feeling when I was frosting it. I was like, like little like pieces would come off as you frost, as happens when you make like a fluffy cake. It just like little pieces would come off, and I just wanted to eat them. But instead I had to like put them back on and frost over it gently in order to keep the shape of a bunt. I'm like, fuck that.
It should be socially acceptable to show up at a party with a cake with a piece taken out of it. Yes. I baked it. I already baked the cake. You're getting cake. It's just, and it's been tested.
That's exactly. It's been tested. It should be okay to, if you're a chef, you taste the soup. If you are a baker, you should get to taste the cake.
I should get to eat most of the cake that I baked for other people.
At least 3/4 of it. It should be acceptable to be cut to come to the party with 1/4 of the cake.
With like a piece of cake for everyone to share and just bloated and covered in crumbs. Yeah, I think that should be considered tactful.
I think that should be polite and the best way of going about things because, you're really caring about them and their health.
I know that it's not poison. If I show up and I've already eaten most of the cake, then you can bet your ass it's edible.
Yeah, you can bet your bottom dollar.
That's my gripe.
Okay, I like that gripe. My gripe is moving. Moving is my gripe.
Oh, God, that's right. You are moving.
Mm-hmm.
And only next door, which is like the least shitty a move can be. And I'm sure it's still just nightmarish.
That move. And then also I'm moving my stuff out of the doll factory.
Oh, right. Post-rent strike.
Yeah, post-rent strike, moving stuff out of the doll factory. So figuring out how to get my stuff there to Los Angeles, across the country. And like I can get this little like cube and I can put stuff in the little cube, and that's great. First of all, there's one main cube company, and I contacted them, and they wanted to charge me something like almost $5,000, and I was like, absolutely
Is it
not.
a solid gold cube? What the fuck?
So then I went to another cube company, and they were like, oh, it's like $1,800, and I was like, oh, okay, definitely that. And I told the first guy, I was like, hey, I asked for a price from this company, and they said this amount, and he was like, oh, their cubes are made out of wood, and our cubes are made out of steel. And I'm like, I don't fucking care. What?
It's not the Three Little Pigs. Jesus Christ. Who gives a fuck? Oh no, my belongings are gonna touch wood. I touch wood all the time.
Exactly. I'm a bimbo.
Yeah. Touched wood just this morning. That's so stupid. Why would that? And that's such a big difference,
It's a
too.
huge difference. And I'm not exaggerating that. Those were the numbers. And I was like, oh, okay. And it comes with like, you know, a covering to it. So it's still waterproof and everything. So it's fine. So I went with the second company, obviously. But now I'm learning that these cubes can't park on the street in New York because there's a new law. So they have to pay someone to sit there while I load up. Oh,
Moving is the fucking worst. I don't know who decided at what stage of human civilization that, like, if you want to move your belongings from one place to another place, it should just be impossible. It should just be like the Odyssey. You should have to fight a cyclops and fend off sirens, which I assume you've had to do.
Oh, yeah, I already did that. Yeah, I tied myself to the boat, obviously. That didn't work with the cyclops, but, you know, with the sirens, it worked.
Yeah, well, New York is full of impossible to defeat cyclopses.
I am a bimbo. Sorry.
You could just respond to anything that way and it works.
I know, it's like, it's better than that's what she said.
It is so much better. Yeah, it's the new that's what she said. I declare it.
I declare it. Boom. But yeah, that's my gripe zone.
Yeah, well griped, everybody. That fucking sucks. And it's gonna suck continuously.
It's gonna keep sucking for a little bit, but then it will stop eventually, and then I'll be settled, and then I'll be like, oh, you know what would be nice? Living somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because I'm stupid, and I'm like, I get flighty, and I'm like, I needed something new and something different and something
All
exciting.
it takes is seeing a for rent sign. And I'm like, I could live there. It doesn't matter where it is. It could be in a place I've never wanted to live in my life. If I see a sign that something is available, that's my new home.
Oh, yeah. I do that all the time. Anytime I go like camping or something and I see a for rent sign on like some little plot somewhere, I'm like,
Right,
yeah.
Not even with a house on it yet. You're like, I could build a house. How fucking hard is it to build a house?
I'm like one little pig.
Yeah. I could do straw or whatever.
I am a bimbo. I don't know if it works anymore, but I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Well, yeah, that was the Gripe Zone, and that was our show. Thank you for listening and watching Low Culture Boil as we talked about bimbos, and we're bimbos, and we really appreciate you for like supporting our dumb little selves.
Yeah, if there's men listening to this who aren't already giving us money, give us some. We've been so stupid for your benefit here today. We were so stupid.
It's true. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you owe us. And that's it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, we love you.
Bye.
Bye.